All right, so Germany got extremely close to taking over Europe during World War II. How are they so effective? It's largely because they built special submarines designed to sink Allied merchant ships. They were called Unterseeboots, or U-boats. 1,162 were constructed during the war. But I'm here to talk about one of only 6 that were captured, the U-505. I work at the museum that currently houses the boat. So I've done a lot of research on it over the years and have had hands-on experiences with it. And so today I'll talk about the capture, events that led up to it, and a few words about what happened afterwards. Let's start with some of the planning stages. All right, so in the first couple of years of World War II in Europe, things looked pretty bad for the Allies. France had surrendered. Great Britain was basically outnumbered and surrounded, trying to fight off these German advances on their own. One thing keeping the British effort afloat were merchant vessels coming across the Atlantic Ocean from the Americas. Germany, of course, caught on to this, and so their plan were to design specialty submarines to destroy all of these merchant vessels. Now, eventually the Allied forces came up with hunter-killer task groups, and their job was basically the opposite. They would go out to the Atlantic, find a U-boat, sink it on site, and defend these merchant vessels. Now, most U-boats were destroyed during the Battle of the Atlantic, but there was one task group, Task Group 22.3, that in 1944 decided instead of sinking this U-boat, they would actually capture it and take it back to an Allied port. The leader of Task Group 22.3 was a Chicago native and a former Air Force pilot. His name was Captain Daniel V. Gallery. The task group itself was large, but he trained 9 men specifically to be the boarding party of the U-boat in case his capture really took place. To Gallery's surprise, in May of 1944, there was lone U-boat activity off the coast of West Africa. With the war and the Battle of the Atlantic heavily in the Allies' favor at this point in 1944, he felt confident enough to go through with this capture plan. To quote Captain Gallery in an article from the Naval Institute, we hunted for this fellow for about 4 or 5 days and nights, had numerous indications that a submarine was nearby, but never did sight this fellow, and we were finally about to give up the hunt. Now, this changed on the morning of Sunday, June 4th, 1944, when the USS Chatelaine caught sight of the U-505. According to Gallery's accounts, she, along with the USS Pillsbury and Jenks, began the attack by finding the sub's exact location using sonar, and once above, began dropping depth charges around it. This attack was enough to force the sub to resurface, where it was then shot at for 6 straight minutes by the task group. Now, once the firing was over, the German crew members leapt overboard, where they were then picked up by the Jenks and the Chatelaine. Now, the boarding party, which came from the Pillsbury, entered the submarine and found flooding coming from an open sea strainer on the floor. This is something that the Germans did to try to flood the boat or scuttle it, on their way out. But Zenon B. Lukosius, one of the boarding party crew members, one of these guys, I think it's him actually, one of the boarding party crew members, somehow bravely found that lid and was able to close up and seal that hatch, basically single-handedly preventing the U-505 from being lost forever. This boarding party found only 1 deceased German crew member on the deck, and the other 58 out of the 59 were safely taken as POWs. The U-505 was now in American hands. The job was not complete. With the U-505 captured now, the question was what to do with it. To avoid being detected by German spies in French West African ports, it was decided that the task group would tow the submarine all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to a British naval base in Bermuda. That 2-week journey was probably the most surprising thing about this capture. The fact that they got all the way there without being detected. The German prisoners were then sent to a POW camp in Ruston, Louisiana. Here's a photo of them, actually. And according to the National World War II Museum, which happens to be in nearby New Orleans, the camp was clear of prisoners by 1946, and the last Germans were repatriated at the end of the war. Now, with the war in Europe finally over on May 8th, 1945, the secret of the capture was let out soon after. And the U.S. Navy actually took the U-505 on a victory tour to celebrate and to raise war bonds. Americans in East Coast cities like New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia were able to board the boat. With the tour over, the sub was taken to a shipyard in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where it was actually going to be used for target practice. But thanks to now retired Admiral Gallery's efforts, that didn't happen. He did a huge fundraiser with his hometown of Chicago and partnered with them to find a permanent home for the U-505, where it would serve as a war memorial for those who lost their lives in the Battle of the Atlantic. And according to Griffin MSI's website, $250,000 was raised in the 1950s, and the boat was towed all the way to Chicago. It came to the campus of the Museum of Science and Industry in September of 1954, where it has been ever since. All right, now, to wrap the story up, World War II was arguably the most important period in the past 100 years of human history. And zooming into the story of the U-505 gives us a part of the war that's often overlooked in history class. In the Battle of the Atlantic, thousands of lives were lost, tons of resources were spent, and technological breakthroughs occurred. And so much of that is culminated within this one capture, within this one story. I recognize that today, and so did Daniel Gallery over 70 years ago, which is why the submarine is still here today. It's now a designated National Historic Landmark, and it serves to bring history to life and preserve it for all future generations and prepare us for the future. Thank you.